Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo. We are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod, and of course, I am joined by the $1 million man himself, the Hall of Famer, Ted DiBiase. Ted, how are you, man?
I'm good, Marcus. How are you, buddy?
Buddy, I could be better.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about it. You know, it's like I hope you can get all that stuff straightened out, and I sure hate that you're gonna have to miss WrestleMania. And what's funny is, like, I'm going there, but I'm not actually going to the show. I'm going there to do what the $1 million man does: make money.
Got to.
Yeah, it's like this WrestleCon. It's one of the biggest autograph signing gigs of the year. So I don't want to miss it. And Melanie's going to go with me, and she very rarely goes. But I told Arn Anderson and I were talking, and Arn and his wife, his wife and Melanie are good friends. So, and I think Jake's there.
Jake and Jim.
Jake and Cheryl's going to be with him, and Cheryl and Melanie know each other. I mean, Melanie was with me way back when Jake first met Cheryl. So anyway,
man,
we'll have some friends there.
Yeah, and Jim and Deborah are both going to be there as well. Yeah. So it's like there's a lot of wonderful folks that are going to be there. And look, if you're in the Philadelphia area and you're just planning on going to WrestleMania, or maybe even that fan fest that WWF puts on or WWE puts on, that's cool. You should do those things. However, you should also check out WrestleCon. There's a lot of legends there. Go to WrestleCon.com for details and find out who else is going to be there. By the way, Ted referenced it, and I didn't want anybody to get too worried. I may or may not make it because my basement flooded. Oh
man,
dude, such a mess, and still trying to figure out all that. So I'm gonna try to be there in Philly. But if I can't, of course, there's still a lot of action going on, and I hope all of our listeners can fill me in on it. But all right, Ted, this week, big anniversary, as April 2nd made it 35 years ago that the WWF returned to Trump Plaza for WrestleMania 5. And we are covering that today.
Wow.
And there's a lot to discuss. Does it feel like 35 years to you?
Wow. Man. It was 35 years ago, and I was 35. So add it up, that's can't believe I'm 70 years old.
Dude, I didn't even think of that, but you're right. 35 years ago, you would have been 35.
Yeah.
So, wow. And I mean, you're in your prime at this point. Some of these notes talk about just how good your matches are, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we do get into these notes, I just want to remind listeners that this topic, WrestleMania 5, is being covered on both of my other podcasts, The Snake Pit with Jake Roberts and The Hacksaw Hour with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And those episodes are both available right now as you're hearing this. Just like we did with the Royal Rumble in 1989 in January, we're taking advantage of a unique opportunity here to pick the brains of 3 stars of the golden era of the WWF on the same topic to get 3 unique perspectives. So after you're finished listening to this, make sure you go check out my podcast with Jake, which is available on all platforms, and my podcast with Hacksaw, which is available exclusively on this YouTube channel, the Everybody's Got a Pod YouTube channel at youtube.com/@everybody's-got-a-pod. So, Ted, with all that out of the way, let's get into these. The blow-off to your rivalry with Hercules will take place at the main event 2, when you'll win by pinfall after Hercules is tripped by Virgil. Kind of an underwhelming way to end the rivalry after you tried to enslave this dude sometime earlier. But the feud felt like it was kind of treading water. I know you liked Ray, but were you glad to move on from this one?
Well, yeah, I mean, because it was not, Ray was a good guy and had a great, oh my gosh, he looked like Hercules.
Yeah.
But I guess he wasn't like he was a fair worker, but I wouldn't class him as a great worker. So.
And I'm sure that you guys were having fine matches, but man, if the machine isn't getting behind you and kind of, priming the crowd for like a great story, like it started with, hey, I'm going to try to enslave this guy. Okay, that's pretty compelling. But then after that, it's like, okay, where did it go? And nothing, you guys just fought each other on the house shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really kind of didn't go anywhere. I personally, as I'm watching it back, I'm like, glad that one's over. Let's see.
Well, and I'm not sure that they wanted it to go anywhere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know in terms of, I mean, because like it was one of those storylines that where I came out on top.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the bad guy comes out on top, then that's the whole deal. Vince is now marketing the product that he's trying to target children and a younger audience. He's now into selling merchandise, action figures, video games. So what are the kids really into? They're heroes.
Yes.
But for every hero, there's got to be a bad guy for the hero to beat up on. I have this thing with Hercules, and I come out on top, which just it's kind of like it keeps me at a certain level in the eyes of the people. You know what I mean?
Got it. So you don't need a strong storyline. The idea is simply that you're trying to take advantage of this guy and you end up getting the better of him. And now that you've got a bunch of heat, so you can move on to the next guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with it. That makes a lot more sense and kind of gives me a new appreciation for that rivalry.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, during the March to Mania in 1989, Paul Bosch is going to pass away after a heart attack. Ted, what can you tell us about your time around Paul and thoughts of him as a promoter and as a man?
Oh my gosh, yeah, Paul Bosch was great. I mean, he was a World War II veteran, and had, I heard stories that he had been in some serious battles, with Germany when he was a soldier. But as a promoter, Houston was one of the greatest places to go. And, it's kind of like, because Paul had the reputation of being a very fair promoter, especially if you're in the main event, you're going to get paid very well. And you're going to get paid well, based on where you are on the card. But that's the rep that Paul Bosch had. And so, yeah, I can't think of anybody that didn't like Paul Bosch.
Jake has, had his fair share of troubles with Vince, with Bill Watts, a lot of promoters along the way. Jake loved Paul Bosch, sings his praises every time he gets brought up. So, yeah. And by the way, Paul Bosch, he wrote some books about his experiences in World War II.
Yeah.
So, folks, I would recommend you go find them. They're out there. I think you can actually get one of them for free right now on like a Kindle or something. So go and find Paul Bosch's books, because, man, that guy's got a hell of a story.
And Houston, although Houston, I guess, was technically part of, I don't know what it was before Bill Watts came along, and I don't know what kind of deal that he and Bill made, but I mean, Houston became part of Mid-South.
Yes.
And and I don't know what that deal was, but I know that I always liked going to Houston. And it was in Houston where, I got to be real good friends with Bruce Pritchard.
Yes.
And Bruce had worked for Paul for years. Kind of, I mean, say years, I don't know how many years, but like you say, worked for him. Like they would go out and put the cards out and all that other stuff and help promote the shows. So him and his brother.
Yeah, Paul Bosch allowed Bruce Pritchard, as a very, very young man, to come in and work for him in like his office, and that Bruce is still working in pro wrestling today, all due to Paul Bosch.
Yeah.
Well, there's another big piece of news from this time that I spoke to Jake about, and I would love to hear your opinion on it, Ted. It's pretty controversial stuff. We've got this from the 2/20/1989 Observer. The big media story in wrestling this week is that the ultimate kayfabe violation has taken place, courtesy of Titan Sports and Vince and Linda McMahon. Titan admitted that pro wrestling was fake and that the competitors do everything they can to avoid hurting one another in a New Jersey State Senate hearing on Thursday in hopes of getting pro wrestling taken away from the authority of the State Athletic Commission. And so state law would no longer mandate a doctor in attendance at ringside during pro wrestling exhibitions. Like, I understand that Vince is trying to conduct a business and avoid, fees and hassle where he can. But I mean, having a doctor at ringside seems like a pretty valuable thing in a sport like wrestling, doesn't it?
And I agree with you. It's like even though wrestling is sports entertainment, it's still sport, and you're still out there bouncing around a ring, and yes, you do get hurt, something, and a lot, but to me, it was kind of like I didn't really look at it as that big a deal, because the whole kayfabe thing, it's like, I would say this. I don't think anybody quit going to the wrestling matches because they found out that it wasn't real.
I agree. In wrestling, look, everybody nowadays knows that wrestling is a work, but it's more popular and making more money than it ever has.
And that's just it, but like sometimes, like with my father and Funk and Amarillo, they actually accidentally ran into each other in a restaurant in Amarillo with their wives and got into a fight. I mean, because the whole town know that Funk Senior and Iron Mike were at each other's throat, and all of a sudden they show up at the same restaurant, and they started fighting in there and went out on the street. And, it was kind of funny.
Boy, how pissed would the wives be? They're just trying to sit down and have some dinner.
That'll ruin your night, won't
it? Right, trying to just go out for a night.
But
Lord.
But yeah, I don't think that it really, because everybody, pretty much everybody, if you'd ever been in a real fight and you watch two guys wrestling, but by the same token, the guys like myself, I tried to make it as realistic as possible. So I tried not to do things that were just blatantly. It's kind of like I've seen guys grab, get somebody in the corner and beat them up, and then grab them by the hair and run them all the way across the ring and run their head in the turnbuckle.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in a real fight and somebody's beating up on you, do you think he could grab you by your hair and run you across the street into a lamppost?
Probably.
He might pull your hair out, but you ain't going. You know what I'm saying? And
yes.
Things like that. But some, like I said, some of the greatest matches I've seen that were so realistic were with the greats. I mean, Dory Funk Jr. I always talk about this match. Dory Funk Jr. and Jack Briscoe. Great one. Oh my gosh. I mean, on the mat, in and out of, and so very real. I mean, I've been smart to the business since I was, 15 years old, and I'm standing on my feet during this match because, again, when you walk into a movie theater, it's a movie, but if the actors, what do the actors do? They draw you into the story you're telling.
Yep.
And they can make you laugh. They can make you cry. They can make you mad. They can make you sad. Same thing with wrestling, sports entertainment. But that's not to say that what we do and some of the things we do aren't dangerous, and the bumps we take are very real. I mean, yes, we're landing on a surface that is, like a good wrestling ring has just a little bit of bounce in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been bounced all over a ring, and I've taken slams on the concrete floor, things like that. But I mean, by and large, it's kind of like, don't write it off like, oh, that's just pro wrestling. Yeah. We've had guys that came out of the NFL. I thought that, well, I can't play football anymore, but I can be a wrestler. Well, a lot of those guys found out real quick, they couldn't cut it.
There have been a lot of pro athletes that have tried wrestling and quit after the first
Yeah.
training session. So yep,
Yeah.
it is not for everybody.
No.
And man, it's like look, the kayfabe violation by Vince, a pretty high profile one, but by the same token, he was also very clearly morphing pro wrestling into entertainment, as you and I have discussed here before. So it's I don't think it's the end of the
basically
world.
what Vince was saying is, yes, we're sports entertainment. So what?
Mm-hmm.
We're good.
Yeah, you're entertained. So and look, this is one of the hottest periods in wrestling history. You know, WrestleMania 5, the mega powers explode. So I don't think he heard anything.
Yeah. You know, and now I will say this. When I first heard it, you know, I was kind of old school and like, why would you do that? But when I had time to think about it, it made all the sense in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, despite this situation, there is a big positive for you at this time, as you're getting some pretty fun creative along the way here with the $1 Million Championship idea coming to fruition. You'll swing by a jewelry store in Greenwich, Connecticut, and tell them you want the most glorious belt ever created. Ted, we discussed it before, but let's give the listeners just kind of a short little reminder. Who came up with the idea, and what did you think of the idea of the $1 Million belt?
Well, okay. WrestleMania 4, and I think what they were trying to do is appease a lot of people. You know, I think originally WrestleMania 4, because I was the main heel they were pushing at the time, was maybe going to be me and Hogan, and I beat Hogan, and I have the belt for a while. But then obviously, if you're a heel in the new WWF, you're not going to be the champion very long, because kids want to see their champion, the good guy, have the belt. And so, you know, originally I think that's what it was supposed to be. And I don't know what issues that they had with Randy at the time, but anyway, so it was Pat Patterson who came to me and let's say, hey Ted, it's just like, and basically he said that, he says, we could do it this way. Or he says, let's just say, for example, that we, you know, and I always loved, I call it, making this with all the people out there that think they're smart to wrestling. And they're going to tell you, here, this is what's going to happen. You know, I always liked making them go, holy shit. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And so Pat Patterson, you know, he said, Ted, he says, let's say this doesn't go the way that a lot of people may predict that it's going to go. And you don't win. You know, you end up in the last match, but you end up with Randy Savage, and Randy Savage, you up until that point had been a heel, and he wins, and that basically turned him babyface. and you have your run with Randy, and he says, but here's the deal, but in your arrogance, you basically say, I don't need your stinking belt. I'll create my own championship. And I'll defend it every week. And that was the whole idea behind the $1 Million Championship. For me to just say, you know, here, you want a real belt. Here's a real belt. And so that's how the whole $1 Million Championship thing came to pass. And of course, Vince does everything big. And like, this belt was not just. Now, you know, if you go buy a replica belt, you know, I think you can buy, I don't know how much mine costs now. I think somebody said maybe $300 or $400. But this belt that they had made, all the stones in the face of the belt were what they call cubic zirconium. And I didn't know what a cubic zirconium was. And I asked my wife, and she goes, it's almost a diamond.
Okay.
And I said, okay, almost a diamond. So it's not a diamond, but it got great value. And I think, so in the face of the belt, they like the big dollar sign, and then the one on each side, the smaller ones. I think there were 700 cubic zirconiums.
Wow.
$50 a piece.
That's an awful lot of money.
$35,000.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That is not a cheap belt.
Times $50 a piece is 35 grand. And that's just the smaller ones. But and because its estimated value in 1980 when they had it made was $40,000, and I had to carry, like when I would go over to Europe or something, then I had to carry a declaration page, so when I went through customs, so they would know what I had and what it was worth.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
Man. So I mean, nowadays that belt has got to be worth even more.
I have no idea. It would be, it's like, yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd love to find out. I mean, I don't know what it would be, but I don't know how much a little bitty cubic zirconium like that would go for now.
Here's the other thing that you've got to consider is like that was on TV and you held it, and guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin held it. It was involved in some major angles with Jake and with Virgil. And so like this now the belt's value has gone up because of the exposure that the belt had as well. So the exact belt itself is probably worth, I would say, upwards of $100 grand or more.
Yeah, I would think so.
Man, absolutely wild. Well, look,
I wish I had it. That's the first question. Now I always take my replica with me to take pictures with the fans, and I go, "Is that the real belt?" I said, "No." I said, "I wish it was, but it's not."
Well, if you happen to swing by the Hall of Fame this weekend, you got to tell Hunter, like, "Hey, man, I should really have that belt."
Well, this is what's funny. On the back of the real belt, there are at the very, very, very top of the belt are 3 diamonds on the back, real diamonds. And I saw that. I said, "What is that?" And they said, "Those are real diamonds." And I said, "Nobody can see them. Why?" He said, "Well, Ted, if anybody ever asks you, are the diamonds in the belt real? You can say yes, and you won't be lying."
Smart.
Oh, isn't that funny?
Smart. Man, it's some next level. Who would think of that? Only the chairman.
Yep.
Okay, let's take a minute to discuss our fantastic sponsor that is changing the lives of men everywhere. Of course, we are talking about Blue Chew. Are you ready to perform with the confidence of the $1 million man in the bedroom? Are you ready to leave your partner feeling like $1 million? Are you ready to get that thing so hard you could go hunting with it? If the answer to all those questions is yes, it's time for you to give Blue Chew a try. Blue Chew can help increase your performance and regain that old confidence where it counts the very most. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so that you can plan ahead or be ready when that opportunity springs up. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part of it, it's all done online. You can forget about those visits to the doctor's office, no more weird, awkward, uncomfortable conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy anymore. It comes right to you. Blue Chew's tablets are made right here in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. But you know the drill, guys. There's not going to be anything discreet about your package. Men everywhere have never been more excited to see their mail carrier arrive, because when your package arrives, your package arrives. Listen, I know what your next question is. Will it actually work? Why don't you try it for free and find out for yourself? Something free from the $1 million man? That's right. You can try it right now for free. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping. That's it. Place your order now and give your partner a very pleasant surprise. Women are attracted to confidence, and Blue Chew can help give you confidence where it counts. Don't wait any longer. Time to chew it and do it. Take advantage of our special deal. Again, you can try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code EGAP at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code EGAP, and receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring Everybody's Got a Pod. Well, before the audience gets to have a look at this glorious belt of yours, we get to see you react to it in the jewelry store in a clip that I saw, and I was like, well, I just have to include this because it's just so good. So here we go.
Everybody's got a price. It's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand? Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod. It's the
You're just making a damn scene in that jewelry store.
Oh, hey, Mark, it's you know what, and I love it. But I tell everybody, I tell people this all the time. I said, I had almost a 20-year active wrestling career. I did a lot of stuff. I had this belt and that belt, and I had tag team champions, and I've been in a lot of great matches and what have you. But of all the things that I've done, what is the one thing everybody remembers about the $1 million belt, the $1 million man? Damn laugh.
Dude, I mean that, and what really kind of put that whole thing, made that whole thing come together is, first of all, Virgil is in the background just not reacting, just like straight faced, but then the guy across the counter from you, like, you're just laughing your head off and being a maniac, and he's just like stone faced too. So it's, man, it was just fantastic. And look, that kind of thing to me, like the over-the-top nature of this makes me think that Vince would have been present to produce it. Is that an accurate assumption?
Well, he wasn't present to produce it, but again, Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard, and Bruce and I had been buddies, met in Houston and everything, and he was with me in the jewelry store. He was with me all those the first vignettes that they saw when I kicked the kids out of the swimming pool.
Yeah.
I kicked the honeymoon couple out of the honeymoon suite because it was the best room in the hotel.
Right.
I kicked a bunch of people out of a restaurant or something.
You went to the emergency room to get a Band-Aid at one point.
Yeah. Bruce was with me for all of that.
Man, he's a great producer by all accounts. Yeah. Now, I mean, Ted, this is these vignettes. Would you say that you're doing them in one take, or would Bruce take a lot of time to go back?
Oh, we took time to do them. I mean, we didn't do we did. I don't know how much time it took to do all of them, but we didn't do but one or two, maybe a day. Sometimes it would take a day just to get one done.
Okay.
So it's depending on where you are. We did most of those in Houston. It's where we were.
Well, and man, that was something else. I love the cheesiness of it and how over the top you were. You're wearing a cape, which is just ridiculous, and you're just laughing your head off.
That was Vince's cape.
That was Vince McMahon's cape.
Yes.
Why in the world does Vince McMahon have a cape?
I don't know. Dracula.
Well, it worked. It looked great. And man, that is a really hilarious scene. I was laughing out loud as I was watching it, thinking about getting to watch it with you. So that was great. The audience is finally going to get a look at the belt on the Brother Love show on March 6th. And the look has become absolutely iconic, this belt and that design. Ted, when you first saw the design of the $1 million belt, what did you think of it?
Well, I thought it was great. Well, I tell you, the one thing I thought when the first thing they when they showed it to me, the big dollar, the really big dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
There was the really big one, and then maybe half of that size on each side next to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at first they had the smaller one as the metal one, and I went, that's not going to work. I said, that's too small. I just told them, I said that dollar sign is not big enough, and so they changed it, and now then made it big enough.
Gotcha. So initially, it was one of those smaller ones was in the middle with two even smaller ones on each side of it.
Yeah.
That's more of a $500,000 belt.
Yeah.
So at the time you see this belt, and obviously this object is going to be tied to you for the rest of your career. Even to this day, people associate that belt with you and you with that belt. At the time, did you think like, hey, this is going to be something for the rest of my career? Or did you think like, it's just like a short-term angle type thing?
I never really thought about it. It's kind of like at the time I didn't, but obviously as time has gone on and everything, that's what I'm associated with. I mean, it's kind of like I've gone through several replica belts.
All right, well,
people love to take pictures with the belt.
I mean, who wouldn't? You got the $1 Million Man standing right there. You're holding the belt. I mean, come on. If you guys aren't going to wrestle,
actually, what I do with the fans is I put the belt on their shoulder so they get a chance to have it for a minute.
They're the $1 Million champion for like 30 seconds.
Belt back, yeah.
Well, you're going to do a double count out with Bret Hart in the build up to Mania. And we've talked a lot about the great chemistry you had with Bret. But it's also of note here that on Saturday night's main event that will air this exact same month, you'd work a match with Owen Hart, with Owen under a mask as the Blue Blazer. And this match got rave reviews despite the fact that it goes under 4 minutes. Ted, what can you tell us about working with Owen Hart?
Owen was great. I'm telling you, Owen was a pleasure to work with, and the tragedy of what eventually happened to him is so sad. I mean, because he had so much potential, and in real life, he was a real funny guy. I mean, he was a ribber, a ribber meaning a jokester. He would play ribs on people, and everybody in the dressing room would get to laugh at it, whatever it was, but. Just a great guy. And it was just so sad that he died like he did.
Man, especially in a ring, on pay-per-view. I mean, the circumstances just could not have been more awful. I mean, anytime you lose somebody, especially at his age, it's such a tragedy, but man, it's so publicly just terrible. And then, guys had to go out afterwards and continue wrestling. In this match where, like, I know that Jeff Jarrett had to go out there and it's like his friend just died and he had to go work a match. Now, would you say that you had the same kind of second generation wrestler chemistry with Owen that you had with Bret?
Yeah. He was. And I, you got to be different. You can't be you can't be exactly who your brother was. So he was, he had his own unique style. So
he did, and he was amazing at it. And I do want to know, I know that you were saying Owen was a ribber and he was fun to be around backstage. Would you say that you considered Owen a friend or more of just like a business associate?
Oh, I considered him a friend. I mean, like we weren't bosom buddies or anything, but it was. I loved it when he would pull his pranks, and I laughed louder than anybody.
Man, some of those stories are absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, some of that stuff wasn't always in the dressing room either. There's some stories about stuff that he had done, like on an airplane.
All right, anything stick out that you can share with us?
Not that I can talk about.
That's probably the smart move.
Yeah.
Well, look, Owen's not the only one that you're apparently putting on a wrestling clinic with. I mean, like I said, you worked with Bret, but now also in the lead up to Mania, you're going to work with and defeat Tim Horner in a match that Meltzer would call one of the best TV squash matches in years. Tim Horner is not likely a name that will come up often. What can you tell us about White Lightning, Tim Horner?
Tim Horner and I are really good friends. And, we don't see each other often now, but back when we were, both working for Bill Watts, that's where Tim and I became friends. And, I mean, Tim was one of those guys who, I mean, he had it. He was really good, but he just never became he never became a big star. It was, I don't know. He good in the ring, but maybe not so good on the mic. I'm just not sure. And a lot of things in wrestling are timing. too.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he wasn't really big. He wasn't like a super body on him or anything like that. What I had was size. I didn't have a super body either. I mean, I always looked like an athlete, but I hated that muscle bound look. I mean, that's like, yeah, you look like you should be in a posing show instead of in the ring sometimes.
Right. And your thing was more about having good matches, which Tim was capable of. I
Yeah.
think that guys like Tim and Jake and I were just talking about Terry Taylor a little bit. Like guys like that, like Terry had look, he had the ring skills, but did he
Yeah.
have that X factor? Maybe not.
Yeah. And I agree. Jake is right. I mean, Terry Taylor knows the business. I mean, even now, I think Terry is one of the guys who's an instructor down in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And Terry and I have been friends for a long time, and a hell of a worker. But just, the charisma, the over the top, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Just
exactly.
didn't have it.
And I think that a guy like Tim Horner probably suffered from the same thing. Technically great, or like a Bobby Eaton is another good example.
Yeah.
Like technically sound, great worker, everybody loves him, but just
Yeah.
maybe doesn't have that X factor charisma.
Yeah. Charisma. You either have it or you don't. You can't teach it to anybody.
That's it, man. And yeah, it's a shame because a guy like Tim Warner, it's like, man, I bet he would have put on some clinic matches with other guys, but he's got to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into your feud with Beefcake. It's kind of a cold rivalry, as you would just kind of randomly get paired with him after your issue with Hercules came to an end. And on top of that, you're putting him over on the house shows on the way to Mania. And in one instance, Ted, the Ultimate Warrior is going to defeat you in 30 seconds in the middle of this house show run. So it feels like they're putting a lot of juice behind you with this $1 million belt idea. And I mean, that idea is certain to get you heat, especially the way that you're presenting it. Like, I don't need that belt. This is the real belt.
Yeah.
Why do you think they're having you lose on the way to this big event? Do you think it hurt you at all?
The thing about a good heel is, the one that I didn't like at all was having to put the Warrior over in 30 seconds.
Right.
That was, to me, that was a little bit insulting.
It's like the junk food equivalent of wrestling, where it's like it doesn't do anything for anybody. I don't think it makes Warrior look particularly good. He just beats you in 30 seconds, and certainly doesn't make you look very good.
No.
But I don't know. It just feels weird to me that you've got this belt and you are sure to get a ton of heat, and now all of a sudden
here's the other thing to consider, though, as I'm looking back at that. I had one of the longest runs of any heel they've had.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember, Bruce and I talking about it. I mean, he says, man, and it's just like, you just, you cannot stay on top like that forever.
So here's what's ironic about you putting on wrestling clinics with guys like Brett, Owen, and Tim Horner during this time. It's reported in the Observer that you were great in the matches with Beefcake, but could still, and these are Meltzer's words, he says, even you with your skills, you could still only carry Beefcake to a decent match. Now, did you feel like you were doing all the heavy lifting in these matches, or is Brutus better than he's being given credit for here?
Again, Brutus was a good worker. I don't put Brutus out there as a great. He was, he had a good spot. He had a good run. He had some charisma, but it's kind of like at different levels. And I think he was at the level that he was at. And I don't think he was ever going to get any higher than that.
I think he maximized his position on the card, and that's mid card. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good spot.
Yeah. Yep.
let's get to Mania. We've talked about the Mega Powers and their 1-year storyline already. So if listeners feel like they're missing a crucial piece of this story, go back and check out our Survivor Series 1988 and Royal Rumble 1989 episodes in the archives. For right now, I'd like to get to your match and this report from the Observer. So again, this is what Meltzer had to say about the match. Ted DiBiase went to a double countout with Brutus Beefcake in 10:01. I've been trying to find a nice thing to say about Beefcake, and here it goes. He's got cool entrance music. DiBiase was nothing short of great here, but once again, the lack of heat was embarrassing. This actually would have been a good match if the crowd would have reacted like it should have, and decent if the crowd simply would have reacted to something. The match was technically and psychologically good. They went outside the ring and did an anticlimactic finish. Beefcake then beat both Ted and Virgil up after the match, and they scattered when he pulled out the scissors. So not well liked by Meltzer, but he did put you over in there, so that's nice. Coming off of, Mania the year prior, which is probably one of the pinnacles of your career with Savage at WrestleMania 4, the belt on the line, stuff like that. Here you are, you're back in Trump Plaza a year later, and you kind of got this really kind of cold match. Would you say that you were frustrated, or was it just, it's a transition rivalry and you felt okay about it?
I understood overall that I was I'm one of their top heels.
Okay.
And there's only, you can't be the top guy all the time.
Yeah.
You've got to go down maybe a prong or two until there's something else, until your time comes around again. It's like you just said, it was like 4 years later that me and Rotunda now are the World Wrestling Federation tag team champions, and we wrestle Hogan and Beefcake in the main event. And, and I don't know much, I know, I know that Beefcake and the Hulkster were pretty tight, and I don't know how much that had to do with it.
I'm sure it had everything to do with the fact that you're working with him here. He and Hogan are buddies, and Hogan, I'm sure, is pushing for him to have good matches, and he knows that for him to have a good match, he's probably got to work with a ring veteran like yourself.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts. I don't know. I wasn't there. I was 2 years old at this time, Ted.
Oh gosh, right in the heart.
Sorry, man, had to throw that in there. Well, I called it a transition rivalry because later on this same night you'll do a run-in during Jake's match, and we've got to watch this very short clip for full context on what happens next.
And Jake is untying from the outside, the $1 Million Man. Where's DiBiase going with that?
Oh, I love it. DiBiase's made it a fair match.
Look at this. Jake right after him, right on his tail. And now Andre going after Stud. And Jake caught up with the $1 Million Man and stopped him.
Okay, so it's just a short clip. And on the surface, there's not much to it. But Ted, did anything stick out to you about that moment between you and Jake?
Not really. Why?
So when Jake and I watched it, he told me on the latest episode of The Snake Pit, which is available right now, that he believes that this was a rib because you grabbed that snake and you ran way far away up the aisle with it, and he had to go and get the snake from you, beat you up, grab the snake, and haul it back to the ring after having just worked a match. So he's like, I guarantee this is a rib. He was like, and if Ted says it wasn't, he's lying. So I'll ask you, was it a rib, Ted?
I can't remember.
See, that's the right answer, folks, because he's not admitting it wasn't a rib.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny when Jake pointed out, because I didn't see it at first, and Jake's like, he did that on purpose. He knew I was tired. He ran way up the aisle with that thing. And just great stuff, and it's going to mark the start of a rivalry between you and Jake here. Now, you guys are going to face off at the following WrestleMania, and it's because right after you and Jake start the rivalry, he's going to suffer an injury, and we're going to discuss that the next time we look back 35 years to 1989. That is going to wrap us up for this week. We are going to continue that story here in the coming months. But next week, we are taking another look back at your time in WCW in 1997. This time it's March and April of that year. So we're going to be talking about Uncensored and Spring Stampede 1997. Man, I cannot wait to dig into that story with you. Again, I know you weren't super psyched about WCW, but I'm looking forward to checking it out with you next week.
And as always remember that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
We'll catch you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.